Okay, here we go. Let's rock and roll. This will be the most full, most exhaustive. It's taken me 3 days to do this. Several people have been asking me to do this for months now. I tested a number of lenses, and I gave you in the prior video the quantification, qualification, connotation, denotation of good bokeh versus bad bokeh. And while certain things have compositional aesthetics where one must deviate from what is generally accepted, generally accepted someone would rather have a background portrait shot like this instead of a hot pink background. But that's not to say that a hot pink background is not compositionally valid given a narrow spectrum of a certain sort of compositional expression of photographic artistry that you want to do. So we cannot specifically say this is period the best bokeh, and it is empirically so the case. However, we can quantify, as I went over the points of talking about different types of bokeh: out of focus, blurry distracting, whether it's fluffy, whether it's impressionistic, the sort of specular bokeh that's actually rendered, and also the depth separation between foreground and background, all things being equal. The shape of the bokeh, whether it's round or geometric or cat's eye, and the sort of pleasing, generally pleasing, just as the rule of thirds is not always valid, it is generally the case. We can apply those same applicative connotations to the expression of saying what is, even though this is an art form, generally is the case. What is generally the case is still a truism. Therefore, we can say something true about what is the best bokeh as a truism, as a generalization. A generalization does not mean it is untrue. A generalization is a truism by default, since it fits within the parameters of what is generally accepted to be the case. Just like justice and truth and many other things. So we can say, even though there are exceptions to the nature of bokeh, like just as their ugly bokeh would be nasty, polygonal background bokeh, which is generally distracting. However, given a certain compositional value of artistic expression, one can say, well, this is, and we've seen pictures like it, whether it's geometric background bokeh, that it is 100% valid and it's a beautiful picture. So moving on with that, we can say, based upon those criteria and giving a quantification and qualification to all those give and takes of bokeh, and an understanding that bokeh is not strictly speaking a blurry background. It has to be compositionally aesthetic. The best generally accepted background bokeh is one that is impressionistic with true depth isolation, that actually separates out and isolates the subject to be rendered at a narrow depth of field at a wide aperture. So given that premise, given that criteria, I came up with a checklist, and was very methodical. I checked out the 105mm DC Nikkor. It's a $1,200 lens. Nikon has a patent on this. By the way, I'm filming this on a Nikon D750 with a Voigtlander 28mm lens. That is what is filming my my fat face right now. I tested the 135mm DC Nikkor f2, the Tacchina 100mm f2.8, the 70-200 Tamron VC 2.8, the 80-200mm f2.8 D-series autofocus Nikkor, which a bunch of you have, that large tank lens. I've got a couple of myself. The 100mm f2 macro planar Zeiss, Carl Zeiss lens, mine, which I'll be reviewing later this week. The 50mm f1.2 AIS, that's a rather expensive lens. It's very fast. Depth of field on it is razor thin at f1.2. You don't even dare think about doing it without a tripod. You can, but it's hit and miss, like machine gunning an object. Getting it right there within that razor thin depth of field is hard. The next lens was the Zeiss Planar, my Zeiss Planar 85mm f1.4. I'll be reviewing that later this week or tomorrow or day after tomorrow. The Nikkor 85mm f1.4, a damn expensive lens. As far as bokeh, it is not to be differentiated from the the 85mm f1.4 G series Nikkor is just a wee hair sharper. This is an insanely expensive lens too, by the way. All of these are $1,200, $1,400, $1,400, $1,000. The next one was the 85mm f1.4 I just mentioned here, and the 180mm f2.8D. So this is the most exhaustive test given the criteria that I was able to set, given a basic truism of impressionistic image, subject separation between foreground and background, and also the type of bokeh that is to be rendered that expresses itself as a truism of best bokeh. Going down the list, I checked each one off in the list, and I went back and reviewed. And I'll go down the list, and then I'll tell you who the winner of all. How many lenses? I think there's 10 lenses total. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I thought it was 10. I was going to include an 11th there, but I didn't do it. I knew it had to been within these 10 lenses, and even myself, I was surprised. I was within the 3. I knew it had to be one of these 3, but and it was. So. First off, unquestionably so, the best bokeh out of a telezoom is the 80-200 2.8. Nice, creamy background bokeh, pastels, out of focus, not busy, but not a mere smear. Even though what the aperture is at using 180mm, it tested it at 70, 100mm, no, yeah, 70, 100, and 200mm, excuse me, on the 80-200. The bokeh was absolutely fantastic. It was the best above even the Tamron. Tamron, due to high element count, actually rendered no depth separation or very little between foreground and background, and so I ended up with an out of focus and yet still busy and slightly distracting background, so it did not express the best bokeh. The Takina, about the same. Takina serves itself a purpose. Obviously, is an exquisite macro, highly built, perfect portrait lens. But there is a next level of bokeh lenses, the expensive portraiture lenses, which have their own use. The Takina is perfect valid portrait lens, but this lens costs 3 times as much as the Takina does, and it serves one purpose, and it doesn't do macro, and it has a patented defocus control on it that's specifically meant for bokeh control. So obviously, there's no disparaging the Takina, because this one stands alone at 3 times the price that is specifically designed to be a bokeh lens. The 100mm f2 macroplanar Zeiss that I have, I thought that it would be very close, and it came in just a hair better even than, to me, given the criteria that I set for the quantification of best bokeh, than the 85mm f1.4D series. This is a very expensive lens. This is beloved by all portrait photographers, whether it's 85mm f1.4D or the 85mm f1.4G series, the 85mm f1.8D. All exquisite. Best color rendering of all of them. However, the 180mm is damn close, and so is the 105mm DC Nikkor, so both of them are very close there. So this actually came up as a second runner-up in best bokeh, the 85mm f1.4. The Zeiss Planar came neck and neck. The Zeiss Planar f1.4. I didn't bring out all the lenses, of course. I will be reviewing that lens later this week, the Zeiss Planar 85mm and the Zeiss Planar Macroplanar 100mm f2. Those reviews are coming in a few days this week. Neck and neck, I actually went back and forth, and I actually can't say that the Zeiss Planar 85mm f1.4 performed a hair better than the Nikkor did. It was definitely sharper, unquestionably so sharper, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about bokeh. So it's definitely sharper, especially center sharpness, not just corner to corner, but center sharpness as well. Blew the balls right off the 85mm f1.4. The bokeh, it was hard to say. They had different qualities, and they did have different warmth. The macroplanar 85mm was more warm, and the 85mm had more of a cyan shift, but you can fix all that in post anyway. 180mm f2.8, exquisite. Definitely a better, but not by much, than the 80-200 2.8 as far as background, both depth separation, all things being equal, and the bokeh to be rendered. as far as not making things busy and true isolation of the subject that is focused at f2.8, and here focused at f1.4, here it focused at f2, and here focused, and all in aperture priority of course, here focused also at f2. So what is the winner out of these 10 lenses? The best absolute bokeh king out of all of them, and it edged it out by a good little bit. I thought they might be neck and neck, but it was definitely within the top 3. I knew it had to be one of these 3. And this is it. The absolute, if you are a bokeh slut, if you are a bokeh whore, if you love bokeh more than anything else on earth, this lens is $1,200. I even grab it for about $750 or $800. If you want the best bokeh that is just absolutely the tits, and it does squeak out the 135 millimeter, it does. This is a 6-element lens, by the way. It's got 6 floating elements, since it's 6 elements and 6 groups. And I haven't reviewed this lens yet. I've owned 2 of them, and this is my 3rd one. But this one edged out every one of the other 9 lenses, including the 2 the 2 Zeiss, Carl Zeiss planar lenses, the 100 millimeter f2 macro planar, and the 85 millimeter Carl Zeiss macro planar f1.4. Comes in a close runner-up to this one, but I was actually had different qualities and properties, but to my eye, compositionally and aesthetically, it was equal to or very slightly better than the 85mm f1.4D series. However, it was a lot sharper, but this video isn't about sharpness, it's about bokeh. However, sharpness is important too, of course, obviously. So this is the winner. This is the bokeh slut of all time. There is no other lens for your Nikon it's got better bokeh than this. That's the 105mm f2 DC Nikkor, all made in Japan. And so if you are an absolute total bokeh slut, that's the lens for you. And by the way, it's not cheap. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.